Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Luckyeevee, Mathmachine, The Shark, Jordan, Strkyer, and our special guest today is Python. Today is our 79th episode, and we're discussing the 1982 movie, Q the Winged Serpent. So, let's get things started.
To quote, it's Q as in the letter Q, not Q as in cue the intro or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Or like a pool cue, though. That would also be a very interesting movie.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the letter Q. Yay!
And this movie is not about Discord from My Little Pony, who is Q and a winged serpent, but he is not Q the winged serpent.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah,
If only, yeah.
it was. But before we talk about Q the Winged Serpent, we're going to just have a tiny tangent here because this movie is actually a remake. It is a remake of a movie called The Winged Serpent, or some sort of say The Feathered Serpent, from 1946. And the reason we're not doing that and we're doing Q the Winged Serpent is because the original movie is not good at all. It is extremely boring. It has no interesting characters. The special effects of the titular winged serpent is literally just a really cheap rubber puppet that they don't even show fully. You can see some basically promotional images that show what it was going to look like. It looks so stupid that they made the right decision not showing it on screen. And yeah, we might have to do the original winged serpent sometime in the future, but that is going to be the far future. Not today, no.
Yep. What do I say to the god of crappy 1900s movies? Not today.
Nope, definitely not. But definitely not.
Not okay.
But Q the Winged Serpent is actually a remake of it from 1982, and it is the exact opposite of the original. This movie was directed by Larry Cohen, who is probably best known for his work on the other cult classic horror movies, the It's Alive series, as well as the movie The Stuff, both of which are really good movies, and if you haven't seen them, check them out.
No.
They're a little extreme at times. What's up?
Not The Stuff.
Yeah, yep, he did that movie. Yeah, if you've seen it, you will not forget it.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Also, the same special effects person who worked on Ghostbusters also worked on this movie.
Yep, Dave Allen. He also worked on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He worked on a whole bunch of movies in the 80s, and he also, believe it or not, also did the stop motion for the first few Puppet Master movies. So he was no stranger for also doing B movies in addition with A work. And also, what's interesting is with the cast, which we'll get to in a little bit, but for now, the movie is set in New York, and it begins with a window washer as he knocks on a window and is apparently spying on a woman. As the woman, as the woman is on her phone,
where being a leech or being a perv absolutely works because
we will get into that. We will get into that more when we get to the main character because yes, we have a lot to say about Jimmy. Yes, we will get to Jimmy. Oh, yes. But as the woman is on her phone, the man looks up as we hear a loud screeching sound. The woman turns around to see the man's headless body resting on the glass. And keep in mind, this is barely like a minute into the movie, and already we have a decapitated corpse. So you know what you're going to get with this when you see that scene. But we cut to the body being removed as we see the two police detectives, Powell and Shepard, played by Richard Roundtree and David Carradine, respectively. This is the Shaft and Death Race 2000 crossover we were all waiting for. I had to make that joke. But what's interesting is originally Shepard was going to be played by a much different actor because Larry Cohen was going to cast a somewhat unknown actor at the time by the name of Bruce Willis.
And Eddie Murphy.
Yep, Eddie Murphy was actually going to play Jimmy, which would have been a very interesting experience, especially when we talk about what kind of a character Jimmy is. And I think Eddie Murphy's take on Jimmy definitely would have been very, very different. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Considering the main antagonist of this movie, let's just say Eddie Murphy has his charms when it comes to scaly ladies.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. And he was one, too. Let's not forget Mulan.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh. That would have been like full circle.
He dated
Yeah.
Scaly, and he absolutely was a Scaly.
Yeah, it's
Let
just
us never forget.
But getting back to the movie itself, the two of them wonder what could have happened, with Powell speculating that something hit the window washer. We get one of those joke transitions that movies like this really like to do. It cuts from Shepard brushing off what the decapitation could have been to like a roast duck basically getting decapitated at a restaurant.
Oof.
It's one of those kind of moments. But a
Yeah.
group of men, including Jimmy, who we previously just mentioned, a nervous piano player, are busy planning a diamond heist. Jimmy tries telling the other gangsters that he won't use a gun, will be the getaway driver, and he wants 20%. The other members tell him that he only gets 12%, as Jimmy basically says he'll get another job and walk out on them. And it's here where we gotta talk. We'll talk a little bit more about Jimmy's character as it goes along, because boy, he's an interesting protagonist. I guess he's a protagonist, even though he does nothing good throughout the movie.
Oh,
What
hell yeah.
happened is Cohen was so impressed with Michael Moriarty's performance as Jimmy. He actually gave him way more screen time. Apparently, Jimmy was not going to be the main protagonist, but Michael Moriarty is one of those actors who gave such an amazing performance that he basically took over the whole movie. Some reviews of the movie singled him as the best part, not the special effects. Some of them actually said to go see it for him.
Wow.
And-
Okay.
And I'll tell you right now, he is acting circles around everyone else in this movie. It's
Definitely.
not even close.
I mean, David Carradine was drunk for most of his scenes during this, so yeah.
Honestly, we'll get to a few moments that honestly absolutely would have worked as him, like, freaking him just going like and like repeating himself, but we'll get to them in a moment.
Yeah, we definitely will. But
This
we
isn't
cut to
quite
go
Christopher
ahead.
Lee in Howling 2 levels, but it's close.
Yeah, it is. In that you have like a real good actor basically knowing what kind of movies he's in, but not caring and throwing himself into it as if it was like an A-picture drama, And it works. It actually really does work for this kind of movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So we then cut to a woman entering a bedroom only to find a skinned body on the bed. The police detectives arrive and wonder how this person was flayed alive, why someone would do it, and how expertly it was done. We then cut to another really cool part of this movie, which is the POV shots of basically, we'll just call it Q for now, because we find out its identity in a little while, flying through the air, which are really well done, especially for such a B picture like this. Cray dude, they had a lot of, they basically knew where to spend the budget on it, and this looks really, really good because you really feel like like this creature is soaring around, that you're actually seeing things from its eyes.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
whole speed and
very much
altitude.
so.
Exactly. But we see a woman preparing to sunbathe as we see her get undressed, and of course we get more voyeurism as a guy is peeping at her through a telescope. And just to reiterate what kind of movie this is, we get a topless shot of this woman, and so far this movie has been on for almost 5 minutes, and so far we have had decapitation, we have had a skinned body, and we have had boobs. 5 minutes into this movie, folks.
B-movie!
Yeah.
Yep.
They definitely knew where their audience was. Sorry, go ahead.
B-movie in the 80s.
Yep.
So
That
Yeah,
was-
this was at the era where people weren't done with 70s and 60s level of B movies.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we actually finally get to see a very short shot of a giant reptilian creature, which is Q, which turns out to be what is killing all the people. And it's here we get a moment that is so creepy, and no movie really does it. And I'm surprised that more movies like with giant, flying monsters or kaiju has not done it. We cut to scenes of the street as blood from the creature's latest victim, the sunbathing woman, is raining from the sky and falling on civilians as they panic and basically have horrified reactions to, blood raining from the sky. And it's something that you really have to stop and think, and it's like, why isn't this in more movies? It's realistic, if nothing else.
Right?
Yeah.
But we
Absolutely.
But we then cut to Jimmy entering an abandoned bar. He tells both the janitor and bartender that he heard that they're looking for a musician, and it's here where Jimmy's actor sits down and plays a jazz song, which, interestingly enough, according to the credits, Michael Moriarty wrote and composed it himself. So, It's really, really shows what a talented guy he is that he actually composed a whole jazz song for this movie. And
Yeah.
Jimmy plays it poorly, but I think it's intentional to show that he's kind of a washed up guy in that.
Honestly, he didn't do it too bad. In terms of jazz artist, he could have done a lot worse. However, that particular part is overshot by the fact that as soon as someone freaking goes over and turns on the freaking jukebox, simultaneously pretty much ending his whole freaking career then and there. There's this song that absolutely plays from the jukebox that I have not been able to look up for ages. I don't know what it's called. I only know like 2 or 3 of the lines at most. This was part of the reason why I honestly kind of couldn't really finish the movie, because it was that one song that was in my head that stuck out to me other than the entire freaking movie. Also, the beast itself.
And it's not listed in the credits either, which makes it even weirder when you think about it.
Like, if anyone knows what that freaking record is or where that song ultimately is, feel free to send us what it is, because I have not been lucky in terms of trying to find it.
Oh no, definitely. We understand. It's one of those things.
Piano scene, insert obligatory Peaches joke here, please.
Yeah,
if only he
that
sang
too.
Peaches, that would have been way better. But we also do get a funny moment where Shepard enters the bar, and there's a funny moment with him and the bartender sharing an annoyed look at each other. Then they just stare at Jimmy in like complete confusion. That's another really good scene. But it turns out that, as I said earlier, David Carradine being drunk was not acting, because by this point, by 1982, his career was really on a downswing.
Ooh.
Yeah, he did a lot of B movies and like even like C tier movies for a long time. It wasn't until the 90s, I think, when they brought back Kung Fu that he actually started to climb out of it. But yeah, by this point, he was not an A-list star.
Indeed.
He was enough of a star probably to put on the marquee, at least, so they had that going for them.
So it was a washout in a movie about a washout protagonist.
Basically, yeah.
Irony.
Yep, kind of. But basically, after what Angron said, the bartender turns on the unknown song on the jukebox. Jimmy storms out in anger. We then cut to the inside of a car as the diamond heist begins. And let's just say it's a diamond heist that simultaneously goes better and worse than the one from Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. And probably better than the one from Bad Guys.
That too. But it turns out that Jimmy is forced to go inside with the thieves as they successfully steal the diamonds. Jimmy leaves the jewelry store with the diamonds, but in a boneheaded move, he forgot the car keys. He tries to get away with the suitcase, but he's nearly hit by a taxi, which causes him to throw it in the middle of a street. Jimmy is disoriented from getting hit, and he stumbles into Chinatown before fumbling into a payphone. He tells someone on the other side that he's in big trouble because, he just participated in a jewel heist. Of course he is. He sees a police car and he flees. He takes a taxi to the Chrysler building and enters it for reasons that really are never made clear. We see like a lawyer's office and he tries to basically open the door, but we don't get any indication that Jimmy even knows this guy, so it's a very weird thing to do. An alarm bell rings, and Jimmy runs into the spire of the building, which is actually filmed there, by the way. And this is this is actually when you could film things in like the spire of the Chrysler building. I think now it's officially closed off to the public, but back then, no. It's amazing how different New York was back then.
But then again, between then and now, 9/11 happened, so that's
that is very true. That definitely could be it. But the
basically,
security...
Larry Cohen just pestered the owners of the Chrysler building until they relented and gave them $18,000 to film there.
That was a good portion of the movie's budget, actually.
Yeah. Oh, funny you should mention that, actually, because there is a scene where like they're talking about like pestering people for money, but we'll get to that in a bit. Don't worry.
Yeah, we will. But Jimmy climbs a ladder to see a gigantic egg with a nest nearby. And it turns out that the giant egg and giant nest, they accidentally left the props behind after filming for a little bit. It apparently became a news story for a couple of weeks, with some scientists apparently were going to go there and find out what the hell this thing was.
Oh, wow.
Because they forgot to remove it from from the actual
Whoever
building.
said-
Yep,
So in the
that's
process
what
of making Q the movie, they made Q IRL.
happened.
Would have
Nice.
been a great promotional material.
Would have been for the movie, would have helped its box
Indeed,
office too,
yeah.
as we'll get to in a little while.
Oh, it probably would have.
Yeah, but Jimmy stares at it curiously. He then tries to leave before being suddenly tackled by a bird. A blood-covered skeleton appears and clatters to the ground as Jimmy just leaps back in surprise. And it turns out that this skeleton is actually supposed to be the sunbathing woman from earlier.
Dang.
That they actually mentioned that in a later scene, that's supposed to be. He sees a gold bracelet on the wrist of the skeleton, and he steals it before running out of the building, which is an indication of what kind of guy Jimmy is.
Yeah,
shots
he's
of,
a
like,
scumbag.
Yeah,
like that
he's worse
person,
than that.
whatever. Ooh, golden bracelet.
Yeah,
Ooh, shiny!
on a dead body that he found in the Chrysler building, like a body that has no, like, barely any meat or flesh or skin or anything on it, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm gonna steal this and get rich." Which
Honestly,
we'll get to more of Jimmy's.
To be
loathsomeness.
fair, if you really think about it, that's just basically paleontology and archaeology in general. You're just like,
True. Although this is a little,
it's a little more
early for that, let's
tasteful.
say.
It's a little more tasteless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the shots of the pigeon basically pecking at the dead body and some of it actually like nestling in like its rib cage is really, really creepy and disturbing. And like I say, one thing I will say about this movie, its cinematography is excellent. It has some really, really innovative and creative shots in it. One of which actually we'll talk about right now, where we cut to a group of construction workers arguing as they take their lunch break. One of the workers goes to get his lunch pail, but is attacked by the creature. And the way they show his death is his blood-covered hard hat is just falls to the ground in a really good shot. You know?
Yeah.
It's one of those
Also,
things that-
interesting. Yeah, it's
Yes, go ahead.
also that scene basically just reminded me of like Major Monogram and Carl just coming back after like Monogram's sick and Carl just comes in with like saying, "Oh, hey, your mother made some very delicious sandwiches. Did she make any sandwiches for me? Let's move on. You ate my sandwich."
Oh, you eat my
nice.
sandwich?
Yeah.
But we then get another really good shot with the creature's shadow being shown in a building, which I think was done with animation, but it still looks really, really well there.
Yeah, I think it
And
was done with animation.
Yep. And then we cut to more civilians running and screaming, as it turns out that the severed foot of the construction worker is landed on the street. And then we cut to another interesting part where we cut to Shepard in a museum talking to its curator about Aztec sacrifice and how they would skin their victims alive. We cut to someone apparently skinning a person as the curator continues to talk about it. And it's here where we find out what Q really is. Q is Quetzalcoatl, which is actually, like in the original, the monster was supposed to be Quetzalcoatl there too. The ironic part is the original actually got it right and gave the basically Quetzalcoatl feathers, whereas here they don't. And
Also, another thing that they got.
Really.
Yeah, and another thing that both got wrong, ironically, Quetzalcoatl is, unfortunately, a dude.
He's not in this, though. Quetzalcoatl in this version is a female because the egg that it's laid is hers, and therefore, well, most likely she's female. Let's put it this way. You know, it's more probably taken to be female than anything else. And
absolutely.
Honestly.
The whole serpent aspect of Quetzalcoatl that...
Exactly.
Someone also inform Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid about that.
That's a nice one. Yep.
Yeah.
But the curator tells him that the deaths must be suicide, as the blood must be given willingly. Shepard wonders why a seemingly ordinary man would basically flay himself alive before the curator claims that the person came to the city just to be sacrificed. Shepard chooses to take the books that the curator recommends as we cut to him studying at night. And it's here where we really get to see David Carradine's acting, because here you could tell he's kind of doing it for a paycheck at this point. I think at one point he visibly slurs his lines, and they didn't do another take of it. But what happens is
there are multiple scenes with that.
unfortunately.
I still thought he was like the.
Oh no, he does a good job, favorite. You know, for what his role is in it. He does a pretty decent job, you know.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And
But,
I know that we've been saying we cut to a lot in this.
This happens.
actually
That's how
the
this movie is edited.
Yeah,
This
there's like no transition. It just cuts to.
None.
B
That's why we have to keep
movie!
saying
Cutting-
that. And yeah, because that's what this is like. There was no editing for this movie. It's like, okay,
Yep.
scene's done, next scene, you know. And this is
B
only
movie.
an 82-minute long movie, and yet it is very, very interesting to try and follow it. But
Yep,
basically,
cutting from one moment to the next,
Yep.
Pretty much the
But,
B movie standard.
But continuing with this scene, Shepard's lover is annoyed at him for studying, as Shepard tries to claim it's either a monster or a god, and if it's a monster, they can kill it, but if it's a god, he doesn't know. Shepard walks away as his lover flips through the book for a couple of seconds before we get a jump scare, which is literally Shepard just jumping out and randomly screaming at her for no reason. It's like, one of the weirdest jump scares in a movie that is not related to Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Although at least we'll say this. At least this movie didn't try to do, ooh, scary Xbox Live avatar. Like one of the Paranormal Activity movies did.
Honestly, I think that's a little clever, but we shall see.
Yeah. But the movie then cuts back to Jimmy returning to his apartment looking disheveled. And it's here where I want to mention something that I don't usually do. The jazz background music in this scene, it sounds like it was added later, like way later, because it actually plays almost louder than the dialogue in this scene. I actually had to turn up my earphones just to try and hear what they were saying at some points. So I wonder if it was like a last-second decision that, we can't have too much silence in this movie. Throw in some music here. But it turns out that here we learn that Jimmy yells at his girlfriend, and basically we find out more wonderful things about Jimmy, that he beat her in the past, and he demands a drink. As Jimmy basically recounts what happens, he brings up the eggs and the skeleton, and Jimmy's overacting here. It really is funny in a way that I think was intentional. The part after he just babbles about the eggs and the skeleton, his girlfriend asks, "Have you been drinking?" And the way he just screams, "I knew you'd say that!" It really is just... Yeah, like I say, Michael Moriarty really is the best acting performance in this movie, and you can definitely tell why, because like Math said earlier, he is giving it 120% in a movie that probably only wanted him to do 40%,
Yeah.
He is throwing his all in it. But basically, Jimmy then babbles about his lot in life and how he wound up where he was before he breaks down crying and tries telling her some more about what happened. And we then cut to a man lying down as apparently a man dressed as an Aztec ceremonial priest, even though, it's not really accurate. He slices into his chest and is basically trying to summon Quetzalcoatl. And we then cut to Shepard and Pal arriving at the docks to see the decomposing body of the sacrifice man, which is... It's not gory, but it is very, very graphic in a way that I feel that might have hurt this movie's chances at the box office, because this is still a pre-PG-13, but this movie definitely would have not gotten a PG, even an 80s PG,
Oh,
Yeah.
this would definitely have gotten an R rating.
Gotten a more restricted rating, yeah. But basically, Pal brings up the sacrifice theory as Shepard mentions that it's plausible. And then we get another really strange thing with the transition. There's a dramatic pan up. The music swells. It shows like the suspension bridge in that. There's a big dramatic moment. And then it just cuts to the two detectives talking in the police precinct. It's like a moment that it feels like it was meant to cut to something else. But it's like they lost what it was originally going to be. So they're like, just use it as a transition to the next scene. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of music, because this is 80s and because this is low budget, bring out the theremin.
Yep, there's a lot of that.
Oh, dear God, the theremin.
Yeah. You're going to hear a lot of that in this movie, too. But basically, Powell tells the police chief that they don't trust the museum curator or anyone else associated with it. And we then cut to Quetzalcoatl again as we had another really cool death scene. Probably one of the best ones in the movie, in my opinion, because she kills another construction worker. But the way this is done is interesting because the claws fly over the worker while he flips through the air. It's like she's superimposed on top of him, but it looks really good, especially for this kind of budget. And we'll talk more about Quetzalcoatl's design a little bit when we get like another full shot of her. But for now, the little bits and pieces we see of her, she is pretty well animated, especially for a movie of this caliber.
Yeah, very
But-
much so.
Yep. But now we cut to another scene that, to me, felt a little pointless. It's like they said, oh, we got to make this movie an hour and 20 minutes. We better hurry up here. With Shepard talking to a colleague about the Quetzalcoatl, which he calls the giant bird, as the colleague mentions that these giant birds could be seen all over the world, and then they went extinct. The colleague then mentions that he wants the corpse when it's dead. And again, this scene just feels like padding. Like they needed something to get this movie to a feature-length runtime with anything. Because I think we see this colleague in one more scene, but it's never fully explained who he is or what he wants. Which is, I guess he's supposed to be like a university professor, but again, we never get that knowledge.
Yeah, he basically just said that he wanted to study the Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
He just wanted to study it, and then that was it. He doesn't really show up for the rest of the movie.
Exactly. He maybe shows up as an extra in one more scene, and that's it, which is really, really weird.
It makes you wonder if he originally had a larger role but got cut or something like that.
It very well could have been. 'Cause this
Probably
feels
did.
Like yep. Because this feels like a movie where, even though it's 82 minutes, you can feel a lot of it might have been left on the cutting room floor. That this is one of those movies that got like hacked and edited to pieces, which maybe it did, maybe it didn't. It's kind of hard to find out a lot about the production of this film. But from what it is, it definitely is an interesting movie regardless. But we then cut to Jimmy trying to sleep while a news report on the attacks plays on TV. And it's here we get to finally back to more of the gangsters subplot as the other gangsters knock on the door as they tell him where the diamonds are. Jimmy basically pulls out the gun and still tries to threaten them, but he's about as intimidating as a soap dish, so that doesn't work.
Yep.
As Jimmy escapes out the fire escape and tries to run through the streets, the background music cuts to another jazz song sung by Michael Moriarty, which is really just weird. It felt like, again, they had no idea what to do for background music, and they didn't want just silence playing, so they're like, just do this and we'll throw it in somewhere. It's okay. It really does not fit for the sequence at all. And the fact that it's actually sung by Jimmy's actor at that moment is really just so weird.
B-movie be asking the real question. Do you like jazz?
No.
In a way, it's almost like a fever dream.
A different kind of B-movie than this, that's for sure.
Yeah,
If Quetzalcoatl was in B-movie by DreamWorks, that would have been interesting.
Oh boy.
Oh my
boy.
goodness.
Anyone needs that.
Yep. But Jimmy's attempt at escaping the gangsters does not work, and he's cornered by them. They threaten to kill him unless he tells them everything. And we then cut to the three of them leaving a taxi and entering the Chrysler building again. And the gangsters basically beat up the guard watching the area as they enter the spire. Jimmy climbs the ladder followed by them. And Jimmy is basically trying to distract them by telling about how great the view is while they arrive at the area with the nest. One of the two gangsters gets eaten by Quetzalcoatl as we finally get a shot of what Quetzalcoatl's face is. And it's kind of a mixture between a bird and a dinosaur in a way. It's a very interesting one, It's like a beakless bird and also like a sauropod in a way.
Yeah. Also, we just entered Little Shop of Horrors territory.
Oh,
allegedly.
Yep. We see the gangster that gets eaten is only shown in shadow, and basically what happens is the other gangster also gets killed, and it's here where we get to see how much of a sociopath Jimmy is because he's cheering and laughing as they get eaten, like so hysterically, and he's so overjoyed at this. I mean, granted, he's not going to be killed, but still, you technically murdered those guys, Jimmy. You led them to Quetzalcoatl, and you let her eat them. And
you are. Yeah, this legit is absolute grounds for you getting arrested if it weren't for the fact you actually didn't commit the murder yourself.
Yeah. And yet, this is not the worst thing Jimmy does. This is not one of the worst things Jimmy does because he goes way further than this. But we get to see just how sociopathic Jimmy is because he's babbling that, I didn't kill you, you went up there, I didn't do it, as he runs out. Basically saying it with like a joy in his heart, you know?
Yikes.
Exactly,
He's finally rid of these guys.
Yep.
In a way.
Yeah, well, he did. But because it's the 80s, we actually get a little bit of aerobics here as we cut to them exercising on a rooftop despite all the killings. And it's like, so far there's been at least, 2 to 3, maybe 4 people killed by Quetzalcoatl already. You don't know that it's that, but you know it's something big. It's eating people on the rooftops. So why are you going on the rooftops?
Because they don't know anything about it.
Exactly, I guess.
They are absolutely stupid. They have no idea what's going on. They just do whatever the hell they want.
Exactly. But what happens is one of the people gets bored and goes into a swimming pool, only for him to get picked up by Quetzalcoatl. And it's here that we get a full body shot of her for the first time. And now we're going to talk about her design a little bit. She looks really, really cool. You could tell that like the same guy who did Ghostbusters or like the Demon Dogs animated this because she really does look good. Is it as good as Ghostbusters? No, but that's because I don't think they had the same budget for that as they did for this. But it still is a really, really neat design. It has this kind of like a brown color scheme to her, or beige rather, that actually stands out really good with all of the buildings. And I think it's actually a really creative design, especially for a movie like this. They could have just had it be like a giant pterodactyl or that, but it feels like they actually went and said, okay, we're going to have it be a giant flying, reptilian monster, but we're going to make her look cool and we're going to make her look unique because there's still nothing like her out there.
The way that I have described this is it looks like it's a snapping turtle's head, dragon wings, just a long lizard body, and bird talons, all combined together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess they did take some cues from the original.
Yep.
Way better than the original. Way better than the original. Anyway, Shock, you were saying? Sorry.
You're kind of like a gargoyle too.
Yeah, it kind of does in a way with the wings, the shape of the wings.
Yeah, very much kind of looks like a gargoyle. Not gonna lie.
It does have some gargoyle vibes. I will say that.
Maybe that was an intentional reference. This is nice. Also, the shot of the man in his talons is a really great sequence because they actually built like a physical set of giant talons to pick up this guy, and then it just cuts to the stop motion of her flying away, and you can actually see this man in her grasp, which is another really neat detail that they didn't have to do. They could have just had her like not even show her talons at that point, but they did, and it's really, really cool they do that.
Surprisingly, for this being low budget, that looked really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I say, the special effects with like Q herself, you could tell that, and like some of the other special effects we get in a little bit, that's where they put all the budget into, and it really does work out. And this movie did not have a high budget. I think this cost maybe like 1.8, maybe $2 million at most, which even for 1982, that was nothing. That was absolutely nothing. For
it was 1.1.
Wow, that's even cheaper.
That is low. That is a very low budget.
Yeah.
For the record, the typical expense for a movie by this point would have been about 10 to 15 million.
Crazy. Absolutely insane to think about. But we then cut to Jimmy basically stumbling into his apartment before a pair of policemen arrest him. And basically, it turns out that Jimmy has had a pass with them as they taunt him for being arrested so many times. And it turns out that apparently they roughed up Jimmy on the way there because when we get to the police station, he's dragged in and put in front of Pal. And you can tell that he was beaten up. He has like a black eye and like a well-cut lip and that. Which, nice touch, kind of a show don't tell kind of thing. But Pal basically tries to interrogate Jimmy, who just says absolutely nothing. Jimmy notices the guard from the Chrysler building and basically asks if he can go into another room because he knows that guy probably recognized him. Pal basically pushes him into another room as the police chief talks to both him and Shepard about all of the attacks. it's here we get a little bit of product placement as we see a giant Coke machine predominantly placed, and it's kind of like in Godzilla 1985 with the Dr. Pepper machines. It's right in the center of the camera, so you're not gonna miss it.
Yes, just so you
Also,
know,
the
this was sponsored.
Yeah.
Also, the A&W vending machine from Supergirl.
That too.
Yep.
Let's talk about Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
That has product placement. That's a little extreme, especially Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Yeah. But
By the way, this
basically-
episode is brought to you by.
nice. But the chief is basically surprised at Shepard's basically acknowledgement of it, and he tells him about his theory about it being Quetzalcoatl. Jimmy listens into their conversation as Shepard tells him how basically Quetzalcoatl isn't Manhattan itself because if it was outside of it, it'd be too tired to fly. Jimmy then speaks up as he tells them happy hunting before being thrown into a cell. We then cut to the city at night as basically Jimmy's girlfriend comes visit him in prison, and he tells her his scheme. He wants tens of millions of dollars from saving the city from Quetzalcoatl. So he's basically at this point extorting it for money. Like he basically has crossed the line from basically like jerk and scumbag to full-on villain territory because he's extorting the city for money unless they pay him several millions of dollars. He won't tell them anything he knows about Quetzalcoatl. Which
to have money.
That's basically Jimmy's character at this moment. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Money, oh money, how I love thee. He's basically, honestly, if they give him an overbite, make him pot-bellied, and freaking give him a yellow hat with the kanji Warui, we might as well have Wario on our hands.
Yes. Yeah, Wario definitely would do that too. But like I say, Jimmy really just shows what a sick guy he is because he's still laughing over the death of the two gangsters. Like after all this time, like he's not traumatized by it at all. It's like he's just so blissful to have killed them in that way. His girlfriend basically tries demanding that he just tells the police what happens, but again, he wants to extort them for money, which, yep. And again, we will see more about Jimmy, and he gets worse from here, ladies and gentlemen. He gets worse from here, if that's any exception. But
the worse
he
gets, the better he gets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We get some really cool POV shots of Quetzalcoatl flying through the sky, set to some really cool dramatic music. And again, it's one of those moments that you wonder how they filmed it. Like, did they actually just get up in a helicopter and film it like through a camcorder? Because it really feels like, again, you feel Quetzalcoatl flying through the air. You feel like what she feels.
Yeah, over the rooftops, through the Twin Towers.
Oh, sorry, Shark, what were you saying?
But keep in mind, drones weren't a thing back then, so
exactly.
Air shots were not easy.
It was very difficult back then.
Yeah.
If you wanted an air shot, you actually had to go into the air for this.
Yeah. You got freaking you got roof shots, you got a shot through the Twin Tower. Ooh. But
well, there was no way of them knowing back then, unfortunately. But what happens is we then cut to Shepard drawing a picture of Quetzalcoatl while Powell tells him that it's traced back to the museum. And it's here where we get the full display of Jimmy's loathsomeness. He's brought to the boardroom as he tells them about finding the sunbather skeleton that was killed. He tells them about the nest, and then he attempts to extort them. He wants $1 million, completely tax-free, as well as full immunity on all crimes he committed, as well as future crimes. So Jimmy is planning on breaking the law in the future.
Wow. Oh, by the way, interesting part about this scene, like, there's this one moment where it's like, I want exclusive rights to everything, even picture of the nest and of the nest.
Exactly.
And
he wants no other press there.
Yeah.
And he repeats himself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, I bet this guy was I bet he was so drunk at this point that he no doubt 100 did a repeating sort of thing for like the rest of that take, and everyone in the room was trying not to laugh their asses off at that.
Exactly. It definitely feels like it, but like I say, again,
he should just go full Dr. Evil and be like, I want $1 million.
He does. He does want $1 million. So he is Dr.
$1
Evil.
million.
He does
He
do
is
that.
Dr. Evil. Basically. But what happens is that we do get one really, really cool moment, which is that Pal is absolutely disgusted with Jimmy. He basically looks at him point blank and he says, a guy died yesterday and you could have saved him, but you didn't. How the hell does that make you feel? But Jimmy, being a loathsome little toad that he is completely unfazed and basically says that I'm going to save the city from tomorrow's death on the next one, so you could kiss my ass. And Pal lunges at him. Pal has had, Pal has had so much enough of them. He wants to just beat the hell out of this guy, and I don't blame him because
and so do we.
We do too. Yes, but basically, this chief has Pal taken out of the room as Jimmy rants about all of his previous arrests and how the city owes him one for everything that he went through, which, okay, Jimmy, you're a real great stand-up guy there.
Yeah, really doing a service to this goddamn country.
Exactly.
You frickin' asshole.
But it turns out that the police are getting all the units ready, and Jimmy immediately demands the cash before they move into the Chrysler building to get the nest and potentially Quetzalcoatl. We then cut to Jimmy and Shepard entering a restaurant as Shepard talks about how he saw Jimmy at the bar and how he played jazz music. And it's at this moment where Jimmy absolutely proves what a piece of garbage he is. Because Jimmy talks about how he learned to play jazz and how he learned that. And while talking about it, in the process, he uses about 3 or 4 racial slurs in a sentence.
Dang.
Yes. Yep. It's like, at that point, it's like, okay,
normal Xbox chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Well,
to be fair, when they didn't have limits on what you could say.
Exactly, but it's like at this point, I'm like, okay, I want to see Jimmy get eaten. I want to see him get eaten.
That never happened.
Well, I hated him so much.
Exactly. Matthew, you were saying, sorry?
It was also during this scene that I noticed, I think that they forgot to change something or edit something in the script because he refers to his girlfriend, or when speaking about his girlfriend, what's a white girl like that dating a guy like me? And it was at that point I realized
he is white. Jimmy is a white guy.
They forgot to change that when this was originally supposed to be Eddie Murphy that had that role.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I have a feeling that this movie, like, the script was passed through multiple different hands.
It definitely seems like it because, again, that is a huge oversight.
It's like Jimmy is multiple different people in this movie for some reason.
Exactly. Anyway, Shark, what were you saying? Sorry about that.
No, just that it was possible, what Strkyer said.
Oh, right. Definitely. Oh, it definitely is. Because, again, like Matt said, it's such a weird change that nobody noticed that. Like, not even on set, Michael Moriarty couldn't have said, hey, wait a minute, this sounds weird. Can we just like cut that line? But it was like, nope, they added it in for whatever reason. But basically, Shepard mentions how he talked to Jimmy's girlfriend, as he mentions that she wanted him to do the right thing. Jimmy laments that she does not love him and just wants to rehabilitate him, leaving to the white girl comment that Math mentioned, which yes, very very weird. And
can we get this part edited a bit? No time. We don't have the budget.
Exactly. And at this point, Jimmy's a bigger villain than Quetzalcoatl at this point, because she's just like, she's just hungry and trying to feed her and her chick. Jimmy is like a racist. He's trying to extort the city. He is, if not a murderer, an accomplice to murder, where he basically beat his girlfriend. He has it all, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is,
yes, domestic.
Yes, Jimmy is, protagonist of the year material here,
And the best part about this is, for Jimmy effectively being like 5 different characters all in one, Michael Moriarty is perfect in every bit of this.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
he
puts 102% into this.
Yep. But basically, Shepard is also disgusted at Jimmy as he mentions that he let the person from yesterday die. Billy mentions the death of the other 2 gangsters as a bunch of reporters burst in before being shot out. Jimmy tries to get their attention and demands to be on the press before mentioning how he's better than the police and more competent at them, which, okay, sure. Basically, Shepard tries to ask for Jimmy's plan as he mentions that they should have helicopters, gunmen, and a tent canvas all around the building to prevent Quetzalcoatl from getting into it. Powell arrives and again proves what a badass he is, so he doesn't take anything from Jimmy, saying that he could have the answer in 15 minutes alone with Jimmy's girlfriend, which, just proves what a badass he is. And again, this is Richard Roundtree, best known for playing Shaft, so... got real good casting here.
Shaft.
Yep, he was. But it turns out that Jimmy is now gonna meet Mr. Egg Cream because he got a big old sack of money. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. He gets
Every
he gets
opportunity, huh?
Yep. Sorry about that. Just had to do it.
Don't
But basically,
worry.
he had to get basically a big sack of money, as the captain says that this whole thing is off the record, and despite everything, he still doesn't believe Shepard. We then cut to the officers arriving at the Chrysler building as Jimmy cheers them on. When they get to the spire, Jimmy asks where's the canvases, but it turns out that they couldn't get it, which probably translates to the budget of the film couldn't afford it, so let's just pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
The police seize the remains of the gangsters as Jimmy wonders why Quetzalcoatl didn't attack him. Shepard basically brings up an interesting theory that they never really do, and maybe it wasn't an original draft of the script, that Quetzalcoatl is using Jimmy to get people, which would be very interesting if that was the case, but they don't go with that, unfortunately.
I mean, he will be the right guy for that.
Right.
Yeah. Let's this way. Jimmy is probably the most loathsome character that's supposed to be a protagonist since Louis from Pikmin.
Yeah.
Basically.
None of these
Oh my
names.
gosh.
Yeah,
You had to
definitely.
bring that up.
Except that Louis will be the one eating people, not bringing people for
Not-
someone else to eat.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would take over from Quetzalcoatl in this case. But
He will cook
Basically-
Quetzalcoatl.
oh god, yes he would. Yes he would.
Fucking-
But basically, seeing the giant egg, Shepard shoots into it, which kills the chick inside. And the scene that is really actually kind of sad the way they film it, in that, okay, it's, like basically the baby chick of a monster, but the way it's done, it's really done kind of gory, and you feel sad for the baby chick inside.
Yeah.
The
Right.
way it's
Like-
gunned down and that.
Yeah, I'm never really a fan of when that happens, even if it's
No.
like for quote
Yeah.
unquote the greater good.
Exactly.
At least it wasn't Sim. That would have been much.
Yeah,
that would've been
at least it
horrible.
wasn't Zim. That
Zim
would have
or Zubair.
sucked.
That would have been
Sucked.
horrible,
Oh.
horrible.
Yeah,
But-
don't even bring that up. That is absolutely traumatic.
Exactly. But it turns out that even though Jimmy finally gets some karma his way, because when they get out, Shepard tells him that the deal's off because they didn't kill Quetzalcoatl, they only killed its chick. And that Jimmy waited too long to tell them about it, and he gets no reward and no amnesty. He doesn't get anything but money that he paid for the diner and a taxi fare home, which is so satisfying after Jimmy being
That's
such a
nothing.
rotten man.
Yeah,
know?
oh man, that man,
You
like
get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Exactly. Shark
so
Side.
basically you did what would have possibly happened to them
Yeah.
to the thing, and you pretty much get nothing for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd call that a good day.
Yeah.
Yep,
Exactly.
satisfactory, catharsis, whatever you want to call it, but it's one of the best moments in the movie.
Yep,
Oh,
a shame he doesn't
definitely.
actually get eaten, but peaks
Yep.
and troughs.
So we then cut to an officer that is dressed as a street performer, as they claim to have found a suspect of the ritual killings, with Powell going with them. We get another really cool shot where we see a kite flying through the air for a few seconds before Quetzalcoatl flies by in a really, really neat shot. And like I say, and what it does after Quetzalcoatl flies past, the camera actually follows it all the way down to the Museum of Natural History, which apparently Quetzalcoatl wants to star in Night at the Museum, which would be another interesting crossover there. Yep. But basically, Pal and some other officers, including the guy that Shepard was speaking to about Quetzalcoatl earlier, the guy reappears in this scene for no reason whatsoever. And again, he does nothing in this scene. They all drive off to stop the killer. they all go into wherever the killer's house is to see various Aztec artifacts. The sacrifice, it turns out to be the museum curator who is willingly allowing himself to die for Quetzalcoatl. But before the sacrifice is over, they kill him, the museum curator, not the sacrificial priest, before it's done. And I love how the priest gets out of this. He takes off the ceremonial mask and he throws it at them before running off.
Yeah.
Uses my own mask as a weapon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I
basically,
can't conceal my identity anymore, I guess.
Exactly. But it turns out that one of the cops basically is trying to look for him, and we get a pretty effective jump scare here, where the cop basically looks behind the door, and the priest just jumps out with a giant axe, and he just like starts stabbing the guy with it. It's not shown on screen for the most part, but it still is just really shocking to see that. And what happens is the priest runs off to the docks into the distance. Powell and the other police officers are on the roof, which leads to one of the saddest moments of the movie, which is that Powell is picked up and is killed by Quetzalcoatl.
There
Yep,
goes.
unfortunately, he
Yeah.
did not live to
That's
see the whole
good.
movie. Yep.
The best character of the movie is now dead.
Yep, unfortunately. If only it was Jimmy instead, but we'll see what happens with him in a little bit. But
And here is where it becomes very apparent that this is a B movie, because they did not have the proper time or budget to animate from here going forward.
that is
it
true.
cements itself very much so.
Yep.
Yeah, you can definitely tell with some of the animation, especially near the end, that it was kind of rushed. But like what happens, we'll get to that very shortly. What happens now is we cut back to Jimmy's apartment, where he's basically throwing things in rage at his girlfriend. So, way to go, Jimmy. It turns out that he's going to be arrested for what happened to the two gangsters, as well as probably letting all the other deaths happen, which, again, so satisfying there to see him get a little bit of his comeuppance there. Jimmy's girlfriend demands for him to get out as he leaves, and we then cut to the Chrysler building again as we get to the climatic battle here, with Quetzalcoatl basically swooping down repeatedly on it, and the police are all trying to fire on her with various machine guns as she attacks them. She kills one of them by knocking him off with her tail, and we get probably one of the cooler scenes in the movie. I thought the animation for this part, though, rushed. Some of it looked pretty good, like the part with with this part in particular, probably being one of the better examples. A gunman basically grazes a Quetzalcoatl as she lands on top of the spire. She picks up the guy in her mouth and just tosses him to his death. And she does this basically to two other police officers. And again, the shot with the guys falling, it feels like an intentional reference to King Kong, where Kong throws the woman to her death, which is even more apparent when we find out what happens with Quetzalcoatl in a couple of seconds. Basically, after killing the two cops, the machine guns begin to get to her, because injured and roaring, she lands on the side of the building and roars as citizens below scream and run in panic, which, for my money, this is the best shot of the movie. The shot of her landing on the side of the building and screaming and roaring in pain and that. It
Can't
really
sweep that
looks...
under the Can't sweep that under the covers now.
Exactly. It really is the probably one of the best done shots in the movie, because it feels, unique in its own way. But we then get to see, of course, Quetzalcoatl sadly pass away. Sadly, I know, but let's just say she was more of a protagonist than Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. I feel more sorry for this broad than I do that asshole.
Oh, definitely. But what happens is she falls off the building and lands on the ground in a shot that really felt like the original King Kong. It really feels like Larry Cohen wanted to pay tribute to that in this way. And I will say this movie is better than King Kong Lives. So they got that going for it.
High bar you set there.
Yep. It's just
high bar. Very high.
Yeah, high bar. But we then cut to Jimmy as he appears to be, I guess, what's supposed to be a hotel room. He's laughing at the fact that they got Quetzalcoatl, even though he doesn't get anything. But a sudden knock at the door startles him, And it turns out that he's ambushed by the sacrificial priest who is holding a knife to his throat. And at this point, to just show you, again, we hate to, hammer the same thing about how Jimmy is, but at this point, I was actually rooting for the sacrificial priest. Okay?
Yeah.
Actually, I was rooting for this guy. It's like, what did he want to do? He just wanted to bring back Quetzalcoatl, Is that so bad compared to everything that Jimmy has done?
Indeed.
Please kill this man.
Yeah.
Oh, this man!
Unfortunately,
so insufferable.
Unfortunately, sadly, tragically, that does not happen because the cops arrive to the motel as the priest is busy monologuing that Jimmy sacrificed to bring Quetzalcoatl back to life. Jimmy basically tries goading the priest in that he will never give his life willingly to it, and Shepard kicks down the door and shoots the priest, which seemingly kills him, only for the priest to come back to life and try to lunge at them. This happens 5 times in a row. It's almost comical by like the last time it happens.
He is that damn stubborn.
Screaming. Exactly.
B-movie.
Yep, B-movie. You thought you killed him once? Nope, you gotta do it at least 5 more times.
Exactly. But it's like, this guy gets shot so many times, and yet he just keeps coming back. It's like, are we sure this guy isn't related to Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers?
Right.
Honestly, I would say Jason.
I did appreciate that David Carradine actually did say, "Man, that guy was hard to kill."
yeah, that was a good moment.
Self-awareness in the
pointing it out
movie
makes it better. Yep. But basically, Shepard decides to help Jimmy go home as Jimmy vows to go straight and be honest, which, Jimmy, totally 100% should not have survived to this point in the movie. I'm sorry. I feel like what they were trying to go for is they were trying to go for like a lovable rogue type of character. Maybe that's why they originally cast Eddie Murphy, because this is around the time he did like 48 Hours and stuff like that. But what we got instead was such a weaselly, self-serving jerk.
Duke Weaselton from Zootopia? It's a lot less likable than him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Moriarty played the character so that you can feel the slime and ooze just funneling off of him.
The writhing hatred in your body.
Exactly. That is exactly. I mean, it really, really shows what a loathsome little guy he is. But the movie ends with a bit of a sequel hook because it zooms into another abandoned building as we see another one of Quetzalcoatl's eggs that begins to hatch. But sadly, this movie would never get a sequel because this movie was critically mixed, with most of it getting attention either for the effects or Michael Moriarty's performance of being panned for being a little long and slow. But this movie was a huge failure at the box office. This cost as we said earlier, this cost $1.1 million. This made $200,000 at the box office. This absolutely bricked completely.
Crashed and burned.
Kind of a shame.
Burn harder than Q.
It's kind of a shame because this really isn't a bad movie per se. It's a B movie, and it's not perfect, but it doesn't deserve to be a movie that bombed. And it feels like the days of movies like this actually getting wide theatrical releases and somewhat of notoriety has gone away. Nowadays, stuff like this would probably be dumped direct to streaming, where it would get noticed maybe for a day and then forgotten, which kind of a shame because you can kind of see why this movie became the cult classic that it did. Because, again, really creative monster design. It has a lot of violence in it. It has a really great performance by Michael Moriarty, as we've repeatedly said. I mean, he does such a good job as Q. As Jimmy, rather. But he really does such a fantastic job. He steals the movie. If they did not have him in this movie, if they had a lesser actor, this would not be as half of as enjoyable as it is.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But like I say, and of course, for me, I think the reason I like it more than anything is the effects, especially, again, with how cool Quetzalcoatl looks in that and what they did with her. And yeah, I definitely would say this is a movie that it's not for everyone. I will say that. This is a movie that I don't think would appeal to a mass audience. But I feel like if you can stomach movies like this, You definitely could have a fun time with this. You know.
Yeah, if you can stomach B movies, this is definitely a B movie that you can definitely sit back to and just enjoy it for what it ultimately is. There's certainly a lot more entertaining out there, but this one I feel definitely had some interesting moments. Speaking of B movies, by the way, that brings us to our question of the day, which is, what is your favorite B movie, Lud?
Yep. I will go first. My favorite B movie, that's another one. Wow, 3 in a row. They've actually been able to answer pretty quickly. Because my favorite B movie is Death Race 2000, easily. It's another movie that was directed by Roger Corman. It actually stars David Carradine. It also stars a very young Sylvester Stallone. I believe this came out like right around the same time as Rocky did. And Stallone plays the bad guy in it. He's Machine Gun Joe Viterbo, and he's really good. Basically, what it is, if you've ever seen like Hunger Games, or like Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man, or movies like that.
Or Twisted Metal.
Or Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal. This movie inspired all of that. It's a movie set in a dystopian future where they have a race where the goal is not only to get to your destination on time, but to also run over as many people as humanly possible. And it has these cars look so cool with the designs. It has really good actors in it. It also has Martin Kove, who was the leader, who was the evil dojo leader in Karate Kid. He plays one of the other races in it, and you could really feel like this is a movie that Corman really put a lot of effort into. And this is rebel group that tries to stop the race. It's very interesting. Basically, I feel this is David Carradine's best role as Death Race 2000. He plays the racer Frankenstein. He turns out to be very different as to what people think of him at the beginning, which turns out really good. And I'm not going to give too many spoilers here, but I will just say this. The ending is one of the best endings of any movie, not just B movie, any movie I have seen with how it just... I'm not going to give too many spoilers. I will say this. Let's just say it comes completely full circle and nothing really changes by the end. I will just say that. I'm not going to say how, but it is very, very funny how basically what happens is at the end, after the whole rebellion, that what changes really. And
nothing.
Exactly. But the effects are great. You know, of the run over bodies, and that has a lot of good stuff. It has again Stallone playing a villain, and one of probably the only times in his career where he plays a villain. You want Frankenstein? You want Frankenstein? And then he starts firing on the crowd in a way that's really reminiscent of Rambo in a funny moment.
Yeah.
Even though this came out years before he played John Rambo. And yeah, again, David Carradine puts in a actually good performance as Frankenstein, and the rest of the racers are really creative as well. Basically, a good way to basically think about it, think of the Hanna-Barbera show Wacky Races if it was an adult movie, you know? If it could have a little more violence and a little more sexual stuff in it, this is the kind of thing you would get. But that is definitely my pick.
Speed Racer, but same idea.
That too. I can kind of see that too, an inspiration for it as well. But yeah, Death Race 2000 is absolutely a movie that you should check out if you haven't. It is a really great movie, and I think it's one that everyone should see at least once because it's one that really no one will ever forget. So, Angron, what would be your pick for your favorite B movie?
Hands down, it's gonna have to be Speed Zone. I have not, to my knowledge, seen too many B movies that I absolutely recognize, or for that matter, like. But yeah, imagine, if you will, Airplane, The Naked Gun, Top Gun, or no, not Top Gun. Sorry, that's not a B movie. Stuff like Get Smart, even. Like, imagine those kinds of movies. A little more disjointed than that, but equally as funny. I'm just gonna flat out say it. Like, I absolutely enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. It has John Candy. It makes things absolutely better. It pretty much had comedy up the wazoo. It had awesome looking cars, which I'm not that big a car person, but I can appreciate a good car model, hands down. And also, it just had a bunch of funny moments that I absolutely will stand by, that they, like, good lordy, like, at the end, I just see oh good lordy, like, there are these two guys who are like, we're always going to win. Like they legit took a plane and legit drove it on the ground. They didn't fly it. They didn't hijack it. They were just straight up like, oh, we're just going to sit politely while they drive a literal plane through a goddamn highway. It was that bizarre, and I loved it.
Yeah, that is a really, really fun movie. Fun fact, I believe it was actually originally intended to be the third movie in the Cannonball Run series, but then they made it to its own thing. And like you said, it has a really great cast. I mean, any movie with John Candy is worth watching at least once, you know?
Yeah.
He's an absolute legend,
man.
and definitely went
Always.
Yeah, definitely died a little too soon.
Oh, hell yeah. Rest in peace, John Candy, but you definitely left a great impact. And here is no exception. So I'm absolutely going to say Speed Zone, hands down.
That's a great, great choice right there. So, Math, what would be your pick for your favorite B movie?
I tried to find animation B movies, and surprisingly, there aren't that many because animation is a long and expensive endeavor, short of indie animated movies.
There's a B movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that one too.
Wow.
There's one exception though. This studio basically just lived their entire existence off of making B animated movies. Rankin Bass. Basically any movie.
That's right.
I think I may know what you're going to pick.
My personal favorite of their catalog, The Last Unicorn.
Nice.
That one.
That is an awesome movie right there.
Oh, dude, I might change my answer to that then. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that was a B movie.
I view that it counts because it was made on about a quarter of the budget of a typical animated movie of that era. So I think that it does count in the lower production cost aspect of a B movie.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think it counts.
You cannot tell me that was a kid's movie. No one can tell me that was a kid's movie.
It's an animated movie. It's not a kid's movie.
It has everything for all the adults. It's got TF. It's got tree boobs. It's got inanimate stuff.
It's one of those movies. Christopher Lee.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it's also got Kevin Smith. It's got freaking gosh, what was it? Jeff Bridges. That's what I was gonna say.
It is such a beautifully animated movie with an amazing cast. That's always been Rankin Bass's strength. They have a voice cast that far surpasses their animation skills.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's a great story. It's so dark and mature. It's basically the exact opposite of everything we've stereotyped Rankin Bass as, and it works in every way.
Oh, you know it. You absolutely know it.
Yes.
Oh man.
Wow, you just really that was an earth shatterer right there.
That's a great choice. That is a great choice. Wow, I never would have thought of it in a million years, but
me neither.
That really is another good choice there. So, Strkyer, what would you say is your favorite B movie?
I have not seen very many, so I didn't have much of a choice when it comes to B movies. Actually,
oh yeah.
Would Airplane be considered a B movie?
It might. You know.
I don't know.
Because I remember Angron mentioned the Naked Gun, so.
Oh yeah.
It was made on a typical budget of the era, so I wouldn't count it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you always cop out and say Last Unicorn, like Math.
Actually, no. I'm going to do a different choice. For Rankin Bass, The Hobbit.
Okay, yes.
Oh, that's right. They did do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
They also did Return of the King after the freaking Ralph Bakshi film.
That was a weird one too. Yeah. Yeah.
I may not have seen it, but I have heard many things about it.
Indeed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It is surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Return of the King one is actually really good as well.
Where there's a whip, stairs away.
I just know that, like, fucking holy shit, there's apparently a lot of missing sound effects in the original movie, and it still has not changed.
What happened was there was a fire that hit the studio, and that destroyed the master cut. So the one that they released for VHS was an older cut that didn't have those sound effects in it, and people have been trying as hard as possible to insert what the sound effects would have been back into it, and it is a very difficult endeavor.
All the releases of the movie nowadays still are the original VHS release.
Nice.
Like, they did not do anything to insert like sound effects.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely,
even with the Blu-ray releases, there's still no sound effects.
ouch.
Oh my gosh.
It's always a shame when they
We're
can't
still talking
do
about
that
The
now.
Hobbit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That really is a big shame right there, you know, when that happens.
is.
And it does happen with a lot of them. Like, some movies exist in only incomplete forms, or not at all in some cases.
True, but still, I'm glad it exists.
Yeah,
Because it is a huge inspiration for it was a huge inspiration for future projects.
Oh,
Oh,
bad.
definitely. Yeah, you can definitely. I mean, look at Smiling Friends even reference it in that episode.
Oh, that's right, they did.
Yep.
Harry Partridge.
Yep. Absolute classic right there. But no, that's
Indeed.
another great choice right there. So, let's see here. Shark, what would your favorite B movie be? Aside from it being B movie, ha ha ha.
Yeah, that will be an easy answer, but I think one I really like that is quite popular. It's Attack of the Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yes, that is a classic right there.
That got a game, by the way.
Yeah. You know, it took a lot of years, but surprise, you can see how remember that movie is because they're making a game right now, so it isn't forgotten.
Nice.
And yeah, this is a movie that definitely takes the concept of killer clowns to the next level because it's not just a group of people dressed as clown killing with knives or just the typical chainsaw. No, they get creative with their weapons and techniques.
They do. And like, fun fact, there were some shots they could only do once because of their small budget.
Yeah,
well, I remember reading the car crash scene was going to be a lot more elaborate originally, but they completely screwed it up and they couldn't afford another take, so that's why it
they just
kind of just goes over a cliff slightly.
Yeah.
I think I know where the Joker got most of his inspiration for most of his kills.
It's possible.
Killer Clowns is that good?
No, what were you gonna say?
I think Killer Clowns absolutely has amazing effects. The Chiodo brothers, they designed these clowns to be the creepiest, freakiest looking characters ever. They don't even look remotely humanoid in some cases, and it works out so good.
Yeah, and the spaceship at the end is like a circus. It has like the doors in the another door.
Yeah.
And the whole maze-like structure. And like I said, because lesser movies will usually have a concept, but the killings usually resort to like, the killer Santa Claus uses the star to stuff people. Oh, the zombie lifeguard uses the pointy part of the surfing board to stuff people. And here, nope, they have guns that turn you into cotton candy.
Yeah,
so they grab the concept and said, "We are going nuts. We are going nuts with what these clowns can do."
These are clowns from space. The sky, no, the cosmos is the limit.
Exactly, they went all out with this, and that is such a great pick right there because that movie it's one of those movies that when you see it, you will never forget it. And apparently a sequel was planned for a long time, like decades and decades, but it never came out. I think the game is now going to be the closest thing to a sequel, but still, it is a lot of fun, you know?
It's a team-based multiplayer game, but it still looks very good.
Nice.
Um,
That is,
I think it either was released or it's in beta currently.
I think it might have been released officially. I'm not sure, but
Well, I'll check on that later.
it's all right. It's all good. But no, that is a great choice right there. Wow, I was really not expecting that. So,
Honestly, same here.
Let's see
It's
here.
it's a good movie.
Yeah,
Nice,
I'll bet. I need to see it, honestly.
You should. It is fun.
You really should.
Yeah.
Game has been out since last month, and it's
Nice.
one of those the kind of game that they make for all horror movies now, where one or two people play the clowns, and like 5 or 6 people play the people trying to escape from the clowns.
Oh, great. So it's Dead by Daylight. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. It's Dead by
Good.
Daylight with killer clowns.
Oh, really? Huh.
Apparently, yep. But like I said, it definitely is. That's a really great choice right there. So, let's see here. Jordan, what would your favorite B movie be?
I was hearing that a lot of like The Last Unicorn and The Hobbits were listed B movies. I didn't think they were B movies. I think kind of in a good way. They were kind of like special to me because with The Hobbit, that one I'm like I love how they have the songs that Bilbo sings. That was like the one like the opening you hear him sing like the greatest adventure was beautifully throughout down the entire movie.
I also you
It ha-
also just reminded me of that one Hobbit from fricking Smiling Friends singing about Charlie and like also Pim being there.
Exactly.
The Last Unicorn, yes, it had a lot of a lot of inappropriate scenes that young kids would never understand. But it's based off a book that they had to cut off a lot of parts.
Oh,
Even
I bet.
Delve did not like how he didn't want to add a lot of some scenes. But the Rankin-Bass brothers were like, "No, these are great scenes. We should totally add them. Do not cut them out." And they convinced him not to cut some of these good scenes out, like the chase where the Red Bull was chasing the unicorn through the woods was a great. There's a lot of great scenes, but he's like, I don't want to add some of these scenes. Don't know which ones, but there were a lot of good ones. So I think The Last Unicorn and The Hobbit are my favorite ones I like to watch.
Those are good choices right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Really good ones. So, Evie, what do you have to say would be your favorite B movie?
I don't know. The only ones I watched like reviews of it.
Would be what? Sorry.
Even the ones I watch reviews of, I don't really like. Or do that more with curiosity.
It's all right.
Yeah.
All good.
And Python?
So wait a minute. What do you guys classify as a B movie? Because there are lots of lists out there that list famous movies as B movies, but like, I don't know.
Anything with a low budget, and yet anything with a low budget, honestly, qualifies as a B movie.
Well, yet
Also
again, that part could also be subjective. But anyway, I suppose Planet Terror from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that can count.
That's a
That
good
definitely
one.
can count.
Hmm.
In terms of animation, though,
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
I think. Fuck, I don't think it's very well known. As like, I've only found like a select few people that heard of it. Once Upon a Rainforest.
I know that movie. I know it.
I've never heard of that.
Same, I've never heard of that movie.
Me and my sister used to have it on our VHS, our little square TV. When
Tim Curry was in that
younger.
movie.
Yeah, and Robin
No, not that one. It's not the one with Texas and the fairies.
What?
Interesting.
I think that was
Okay.
Fern Gully.
No.
Yeah, you're
wait.
thinking Fern Gully. Once Upon a Rainforest is the one with
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. The
Crawford going,
rheumatism
"Hi."
one. That's right. The rheumatism.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the one with the grandpa badger and like
I
the
know it
forest
too,
gets
I know it too.
poisoned.
And his niece pretty much freaking
Yeah.
ill. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. I've definitely seen that movie.
Yeah. The 3 kids or something build like a
3
little
kids trying to stop deforestation and whatnot. It's basically something that Kimba admittedly did a little better in the 60s, but
It's
I digress.
much fur-girly, but more kid-friendly, I would say.
Yeah, more or less.
Oh
Yep,
yeah, my
exactly.
sister adored Fern Gully when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Like that would be the one movie she would rent from the library every single time.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
absolutely does count as a B movie. It was made on like a fifth of the budget for a typical animated movie from that era.
I will have to look at this.
Nice. But yeah, no, that is definitely that's definitely another good pick right there, both of them, because they're both movies that definitely fit in the criteria, you know?
People have heard of them.
Yep. Like I said, I never heard of Once Upon a Rainforest. I'm definitely going
I have.
to look it up. Yep.
Movie, but prepare to cry.
Yep. All good. All
It's
good.
fine. But in any case.
So, yep, now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we rank the character from 1 to 10. This time we're talking about Quetzalcoatl from this movie. It's going to be interesting ranking it because she's not a character, but she's not supposed to be a character. You know, it's supposed to be like the main, let's say, if not villain of the piece, the main antagonist, the main obstacle of the film.
Indeed.
So, with that in mind, I'm definitely going to try to give her a high score because number one, the animation is really, really good. Even when it falters a little bit near the end, it still looks fantastic in my opinion. So I might have to go with giving her. I'm actually gonna probably go high and give her a 9 out of 10 because again, she's not really a character per se, but she is really, really good. The animation is fantastic. What they do with her, with the kills are creative, and just the lore I think surrounding her and surrounding her background is really, really interesting. Keeping in mind that this is not at all accurate to the actual mythology of Quetzalcoatl herself, this still is really, really good. So I'm definitely going to give her a high score for that. So that's why she's getting a 9 out of 10 because number one, the animation, and for what they intend to do with her, they really do a good job. So that's going to be my pick. So Angron, what would you give her?
Sorry, what did you say yours was?
9 out of 10. 9.
Oh. Okay. Well, let me see here. I love the design. It's pretty cool. She doesn't do a whole lot in the movie, but the stuff she does is absolutely impressive. The build-up, a little askew, but it definitely absolutely has potential, and it's honestly pretty impressive seeing it. The final battle was impressive and reminds me of a certain something that I'm not going to say just yet because I have yet to show you people. So, and I also feel a little more sorry for her than I do any other human in the movie. Maybe except Shaft and Shepard. That being said, however, I'm going to give it a pretty generous 9 out of 10 as well to keep the train going, and also because she's pretty cool. Would like to see more of her.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can definitely see why she'd get that. So, Math, what would you rank her?
Unfortunately, the train is being derailed.
No, not again.
No.
I absolutely give them points for creativity with the design. I explain how it's just this mishmash of so many different things, and it looks cool in stills or when they actually have the time to animate it. My issue is towards the end. It looked like they did not have the time to properly do that, and it comes off a little bit jank in the final product. That said, again, I really do appreciate the creativity, and that's really what sells this, is just how creative they were trying to make this thing work. As far as character goes, we basically get all the characterization from the people talking about her. We don't actually get any characterization from her. She is just, and I get to pull out one of my favorite oldies again, I'm a monster!
Yeah, nice.
So I can only, in absolute good faith, give this a 6 based on how I rate things.
Ouch.
I was initially going to give it a 7.
Okay,
I
so
can
at least I'm
see
not
why
too
in a
far
way.
off then.
Yeah, I can understand in a way. I can kind of understand why. So that's all right. Let's see. Strkyer, what would you give her from this movie?
I'm gonna be a bit bizarre with mine.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna go full send.
Wow.
I'm giving her a 10 because I actually thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Yeah,
Wow,
thoroughly enjoyed.
I will still say that I hated Jimmy's characterization.
Oh yeah.
However, the effects have a charm to them.
I agree.
Especially with Quetzalcoatl. And just oh my goodness, like just as the movie went on, it just somehow kept getting better to me.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. It does make sense the more you look at the movie.
Yeah, I will full send on the character of Quetzalcoatl then.
Nice.
Good
on you.
That is definitely a good choice right there. Wow, I was not expecting a 10 out of 10. I'll say that much.
Yep.
Wow. Definitely is not expecting that high of a score, but let's see if it keeps getting a high score. Shark, what would you give Quetzalcoatl from this movie?
I think Mathmachine and I are on the same page with this character because the design creative. What little we got, the build-up is nice. It's paced enough, and like the shots of hair flying are great. The final battle, they did a lot with hair. It's action packed. It's tragic. It's a lot of things, but well, yeah, I have the same issue. At the end of the day, she's just a monster without any character. So
a shame.
The design is creative. What we saw her doing in the movie was cool, but that's pretty much what we get for her. We don't get character. Although admittedly, is a better character than Jimmy himself. So.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. I gotta exit, but I'll just give my score a 5.
Go ahead.
So,
okay. All right. So 5 out of 10 from Python.
Score
of
5
right.
since I've never seen the movie at all. But I like the name Quetzalcoatl. Okay, goodbye.
It's all good. Okay, all right. See you around. Okay, so I'm Shark. What score would you give her?
6 out of 10.
Okay. It's all good. So 6 out of 10. It makes sense. So now let's see here. Jordan, what would you give Quetzalcoatl from Q the Winged Serpent? Jordan. Okay, we can come back there if you want. Evie, what would you give?
I guess 5. It's
5 as well. Okay, that's good. All right.
Okay,
so
all right.
2
Jordan, knock.
Sorry. So you can always give it later on if you want. It's okay.
Yep.
So, that'll be it for this week. If you have any questions or if you want to send us suggestions on how Jimmy should have died an agonizingly slow death, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at
24 hours with
twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Yes. Lock the two in a room together. If either one of them dies, it'll be a net positive for the world as a whole. If both of them dies,
if you wish to, be sure to send us what that song might be if you ever get the chance.
Definitely do that. And also be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/Ludmillanon, and be sure to like and listen to the playlist as well. Next week, we'll be discussing a slightly newer B movie that is a very interesting, unique one. We're going to be discussing the 1994/1997 movie Future War. This movie stars Daniel Bernhardt, best known from John Wick and Matrix Reloaded. Basically, he plays kind of a knockoff of Van Damme, and there are dinosaurs in it. We'll definitely say that much, and they're very interesting ones. There's cyborgs, and there's a movie that really tried to overextend itself from what it was able to do, and we'll talk more about that next week, but definitely was a lot of fun, and thank you guys so much for watching for this week, and until then, take care.
Later.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
See you next week for Future War. Adios. Yep.